Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Uncommon Sense. I'm Junia. Thank you for joining us. My guest today is Sanford Smith, owner and president of Sanford Smith and Associates. He creates and manages art exhibitions that are among the most anticipated and important in the world. Oh my goodness, what a career. What's involved in designing, creating, and managing an art fair that's successful?
Successful art fair. First, you have to start with the right real estate. As funny as that sounds. You need to find a location, then you need to get the exhibitors to come in. You publicize it, you advertise it, you market it, and hopefully you bring in the right people. My shows do not require 20,000 people. It would be nice because the gate would be good, but they are mostly tire kickers. What we just did with the Salon of Art and Design is target the top collectors, designers, decorators in the entire metropolitan area. And we spent 7 months accumulating the addresses, because we went after home addresses and not business addresses. We did a mailing and we wound up with 2,200 people at the preview, and they were the right people.
You're a man who digs deep.
Very deep in order to make it successful. The bottom line of any show, any art show, any antique show, if the dealers make money, you're a hit. If the dealers don't make money, you have a problem.
So it's incumbent on you to have the right people there,
Exactly.
as you said.
The most important thing is the right people. There are shows in the country, one example which I always found interesting, a Florida producer used to send out 50,000 free tickets to his show, and he sent it to every senior citizen home in the state. I have a 90-year-old uncle who used to get free tickets. And he would go to the show, and like clockwork, the day after the show, he would call me up and scream and yell that they charged him $5 for a coffee. There was no way this man was going to buy anything at this show. And yet he took up space and kept the dealer's attention.
Now, how did you learn that you had to do such deep research to get the right people there that it was important to do?
I've been doing this a very long time, and we started out with trial and error. My first year I did a show, which is now 35 years ago. I used what I call the shotgun approach. I bought ads in every publication between Boston and Philadelphia. I sent mailings to every list I could get my hands on. And we finally, over the years, refined it to what we felt were the people who were interested and could also afford the level of the merchandise we carried.
How did you get into this line of work? I mean, you sort of created it in a sense.
Well, I started out when I was first married. My wife's family came from a small town outside of Waterbury, Connecticut. And on weekends, we used to go up with the kids. My in-laws would watch the kids, and we'd go to a movie or somewhere. Well, the movies ran out very fast in a town that had one movie theater. So we used to go to the Grange Hall in Northfield, Connecticut for country auctions on Friday night. And in those days, for $10, you could almost fill up a country squires. And we had lots of stuff. And we took a stall at the 26th Street Flea Market. It was a wonderful day. We made $50. I got a suntan, and I was making $150 a week in a full-time job. So it was a really, really enlightening experience.
So you have a lot of energy, don't you?
Oh, I've had over the years. As I get older, the energy level is slightly going down, but I still have the energy.
Because you were doing 2 jobs at once, so to
Yes.
speak, something recreationally with your wife.
What I would do, we were in the funeral business. My family was in the funeral business in New York. And we had a garage down on the Lower East Side where I used to keep the car and the antiques. And on a Sunday morning, I would load the car on my way to the flea market on 26th Street. And my father and all his cronies would be standing on the steps of the funeral home. And as I drove by, he would yell out, "Where are you going with all that garbage?" Because it was something he never understood.
Never encouraged it either.
No, well, he let me keep the car and the antiques there. That was an encouragement, but he never understood what I was doing.
You had restlessness.
Yeah, a certain amount of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need change in your life.
I need
Or challenge, maybe.
challenge and evolution is what I need. And over the years, we've done that. I've done over 130 shows, everything from antiquarian books to paintings to prints to antiques to 20th century design. Each is a new challenge.
And how do you, what do I want to say, identify that this is the time for this kind of a show that you're starting?
I started with the Fall Antique Show at the Pier, which was the first all-American antique show in the world. All the material was American. Prior to that, antique shows were predominantly English, European, continental, Asian, very little American. That was very, very successful. So what I did over the years was I looked for a hole in the market, meaning there was something missing from the market. I started Modernism almost 30 years ago, which was the first 20th century design show in the world. I did Works on Paper, which was the first show dealing with not only prints and drawings and etchings, but also architectural drawings, books, all kinds of things. And each year, when I could come up with something new, we'd start a new show.
So you're a risk taker, as they call them these days.
Yeah, to a certain extent, because the amount of money you need to invest nowadays, especially, is enormous. The Park Avenue Armory is probably the most expensive rental in the city of New York. On a square foot basis, I'm paying, with the extras, almost $36,000 a day for the use of the facility.
And how you make money by charging the dealers?
Yeah, basically, I'm in the real estate business to a certain extent. I rent the
cute.
armory, and then I cut it up into booths, and I then rent it to the exhibitors. I construct the booths. I bring in a construction company to build the booths. I bring in electrical contractors to do it. I bring in painters, fabric people, all of that, and it all lasts for probably 5 days, and it all comes out again.
A lot of
It's
work.
the biggest pop-up in the city of New York.
Yeah, a lot of work. So when you, some of these shows you've done a long time, but some end. How do you know when it's time to stop a particular focus?
A show runs the market. I never wanted a show that wasn't going to be successful. Once the shows started getting difficult because the dealers either did not have the money, there weren't enough of them in that area anymore, things had changed style-wise that people were collecting. At that point, I would probably end it and then try and look for something new that would fit into the current mode of what people were doing.
Now, while you were doing this, were you doing something else too, similar to what, you know, you're working in the funeral business and also having a flea market booth?
Flea market booth and all that. Actually, as I got on, the shows expanded. At a high point, I was doing 11 shows a year.
Busy.
In New York, in Philadelphia, in Hartford, Connecticut,
Yeah.
in Chicago, and we were very, very busy. So I had no other time to do another job. Plus, it was a lucrative business. It still is a lucrative business. I earn a living, I put my kids through college, it's very nice.
So you must have had to hire people.
I started with one assistant, and I ran the business as a mama and papa shop for probably 10 or 12 years with only one assistant. I would pick up a staff for the shows themselves, security, office, that kind of thing. But we were really, I've always considered myself a mama and papa operation. There are much bigger companies out there doing what I'm doing. They're much better funded than we are. There was a show on Roosevelt Island last year that has a bank backing it. There was a show in Miami next week, actually, that has a bank backing it. I don't have any banks.
And so what did you learn about managing people? Because it seems to me when you put up a show, you're always dealing with temporary
Lots of
help
people. And also thousands of people coming in as guests who are coming and paying money to come in and need to be treated properly. My philosophy has always been, I'm there to service the exhibitor who's paying me rent. He's my client, and I have to take care of my client. There are managers who think they run it and the dealers don't make a difference. The deal is the important thing. If you cannot get the dealers and the right dealers, you really have no show. So it depends on who you're able to bring in. So you treat them as best as possible.
And so did you bring that sense of service to your marriage?
To my marriage. Yes, I was married for many years to a woman I met in college. She passed away from cancer. I have 3 children with her, which I can mention. 2 of them started an app company for the Apple. the iPad and the phone, and they sold it a year ago to the Japanese. So they did very well. My third son is the psychologist at the United Nations International School. I have a fourth son by my second wife, who is now a freshman in college.
You cover the waterfront and boys, don't
Yes,
you?
all boys. 4 boys. I have 5 grandchildren. 4 of those are boys. I seem to make boys. If I had moved to China, they would make me a god with all the male children.
What does it take? What did you learn about raising boys?
It's got to be easier than raising girls. I see friends of mine with girls. The boys were very good. I can honestly say, with the 4 sons over a very long period of time, I have never had any kind of serious disciplinary problem with any of them.
Did you have to change how you raised each one because they were different
No,
personalities?
no. They were raised in a family where both the mother and the father took a great deal of time and effort in the children. I mean, I always thought the more time you put into your kids, the better your kids are going to turn out. And if my children are any indication, they've turned out great. All 4 of them.
Did your father put a lot of time into you?
No, he did not. He put a lot of time into the business. And my mother was a bit of a prima donna. And somehow or another, my brother and I turned out okay. Though my brother and I were never close.
Is that remediable?
No, he passed away about a year and a half ago. At a young age, he was only 66.
That's amazing you turned into such a good father. I guess
Well,
did you do the opposite?
I'm not the best father in the world. I was a good father. I could have been a better father, but we can always be better.
Yes.
And it worked out this way, and my boys are fine.
How did you handle your own impatience to change things or do things? I mean,
I'm very
you have
impatient.
a person with a lot of drive, maybe not immediately, but years ago.
Well, still, I mean, the Salon is a new show. It took a great deal of work and effort. My current wife is in the business with me, and she handled all the public relations, the marketing for the show, and did a remarkable job. Just the fact that we got 2,200 of really the best people in the area to come to that preview was a success. My patience, I'm impatient. I've always been impatient. But I just go on. We all do.
I'm impatient.
Of course, and you just go on too.
I treasure that. It gives me energy. It gives me vitality. It also lateralizes what I can see, and it gives me a sense of how things will play out. So it's hard on maybe others, but
It's very hard on others, my impatience. Yeah, I understand that fully.
how do you make up for that?
I don't.
Yeah,
I'm just
let 'em live
who
with
I
it?
am.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're a certain stage of life, we each become who we are.
Yeah.
And we do try and change. When my wife came into the business, she said the model I had been using for 35 years, which was very successful, needed to be changed because the market had changed, people had changed, the dollars had changed. When I started in business, you could buy a fabulous piece of American folk art for a couple $100. Now they're all up in the $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 range. So the shows, I did the Outsider Art Show, which was the first outsider show in the world, because the folk art area had gotten too expensive for the collector. And the Outsider Art Fair was a much lower price point, and it was very successful. It's 21 years running. I sold it after 20 years because I needed a new energy, and I didn't have that kind of energy to go forward with it. The young man I sold it to has a gallery in Chelsea, and he just did the first Outsider Art Show in Paris because his wife speaks fluent French. He's a curator. They were able to do that. I would not do that, and I knew he would be able to expand the franchise. And so it was a time to change it over to younger hands.
So you really know yourself then?
Oh, I think so. I think I know myself very well, with all the faults and the foibles and everything else that goes with it.
Did you fight hard to become the person you are?
I think you become the person you are through experience, education, and your social contacts. I don't think you really fight to become the person you are. I think it comes to you by your experience with other people and your interaction with other people.
They are your teachers.
Yes, I mean, everyone you deal with. I mean, everybody you meet, the man you buy your newspaper from who says hello to you in the morning. I mean, everybody you deal with influences your life one way or another.
Yes, I agree. So you should be a good influencer,
Oh,
right?
we try to be. We definitely try to be.
And so, living with 2 different women, what have you learned about making a good marriage?
I think both women, although my current wife would disagree, Both my wives were very similar in many ways. They were both exceptional mothers. They were both very well very well educated. Their intellectualism offset my lack of it. My street smarts works better for me. I went to college, I went to graduate school, I have all the degrees and all the other good stuff. But I was never really the student. Both my wives did far better intellectually than I did, study-wise and education-wise. And I've learned from them. I was dyslexic as a child. I couldn't spell. I still can't spell to this day properly. God bless spell check on my computer. And when I really need to spell a word fast, I just yell out, "How do you spell?" And somebody in my office yells back. It's a very informal office.
So I was amazed that you took her, not amazed, but actually admired, that you took her advice. The show had to be, what do I say, torqued a little.
No, it was right. I mean, I've been operating under a formula that has worked for me for 35 years, very successfully, very profitably, and has built a reputation at a certain level. But things have changed. The market has changed. I have a lot of European dealers in the show, Paris, London, Sweden, because they're coming to New York because the money's in New York now. The money is no longer going to Paris or London to buy antiques and art. A lot of what we used to call brown furniture, Edwardian furniture, Regency furniture, French period furniture, nobody's buying it anymore. They're not buying silverware. People don't live with silver because they don't have the servants to polish it. So that's a whole different area of collecting. The hottest markets today are in 20th century design, contemporary art. Those are the markets. And what we did was the salon really does feed those markets. And it's a place where people, very successful show. I mean, the dealers, I had 53 dealers. Almost every one of them did well. The amount of material sold was very high, and the price points that they sold it at were fantastic. So they all went home happy, which means happy dealers means I have an easier time putting the show together next year.
Do you edit the
dealers? Material?
No,
the dealers, absolutely. Actually, what we did yesterday, we walked around with a member of the French syndicate, and we looked at every booth, and we decided who's coming back and who's not coming back. And we want to get the dealers we need to fill the holes in the material we don't have, trying to make it the best show possible.
If you were to start another show in a year or two, what would you do?
I have no idea. I've been looking for that hole for ages, looking for that opening in the market that I could put something into. There are areas, we're actually talking about a men's show at the moment, totally different from anything I've ever done. A show which will be geared to the likes of wealthy men, brandies, cognacs, cigars, cars, leather jackets, that kind of thing. And a much different approach to it. Definitely motorcyclists.
In men, do you think it's, what do I want to say? Their not taste is different, but their focus is different depending on the age group they're in?
Oh, that's definite. I mean, men, my generation, are collectors. The younger generations, what's happened with the economy the way it is, there's a whole cadre of people, families, who would make in New York City $130,000, $140,000, $150,000, which sounds like a lot of money, but in New York City it's not a lot of money. In Dubuque, Iowa, it's a fortune, and in other parts of the country, in Detroit, it's a fortune. But in New York City, when you consider that the rent or the condo, the private schools for the kids, a place to go in the summer, a car, the parking garage, it turns out to not a lot of disposable income to put into art and antiques.
And therefore?
And therefore, we're losing an entire middle-class market that we've had patronizing this business over the last 30 years. It's now disappearing.
So would that return you to the flea market? I mean, would you then go back to a lower price per item?
No, because that's not where I want to be.
Mm-hmm. Where do you want to be?
I want to be exactly where I am, having the best, highest quality events of any show anywhere. I do the Art Dealers, I manage the Art Dealers Association show, the top art dealers in the United States. I do the Print Fair, which is the International Fine Print Dealers, which has the finest print dealers in the world, 175 of them as members of it. And I do the International Antiquarian Book Show with 200 exhibitors from 17 countries. It's the best in the world. I want to be at that level. I've worked hard to get to that level, and I want
Yes,
to
you
stay at
have.
that level.
And you've earned the respect and admiration.
I hope so.
Well,
Well, I'm here.
Yes, you're here.
Right? I'm here.
It's always good to be here.
Yes.
So just speculate for a moment. These people who are 150,000 and are short for discretionary funds to, or maybe they don't have the focus to put into art things. Maybe they're more into computer things like your son.
Well, computers are one thing, but art and collecting. People collect. I know people who collect bottle tops. I know people who collect matchbooks from restaurants. People are collectors in general. They want to collect something. And they can collect something very simple as a matchbook. Well, we don't have them anymore. Nobody smokes anymore. But we used to have the matchbooks. You can collect bottle tops. There are people who collect beer bottles. I mean, Billy Beer, which was Jimmy Carter's brother's beer, is a very valuable collector's item today because there wasn't very many of them made. So people are collectors. You collect things. You collect jewelry.
I was just thinking, what are the silly things I've collected over the
You have
years?
jewelry.
Well,
You
those
collect
were
jewelry.
gifts from my late husband. But I don't really buy my own jewelry. In any case, I collected the labels they used to put on suitcases
Absolutely.
from the hotels.
Right.
And more recently, I've collected the hotel keys that go, that are
The
sort
Magna
of sensitive.
cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I don't know, maybe they'll be different. Just it's sort of a document of a time in history.
Absolutely.
Because that will change with thumbprints or some other kind of show. So people, I don't know, do all people collect?
I think most people collect something. I think they all do. I mean, I could look around this room right now to the people who are taking our picture and say, do you collect anything? And I'll bet you that 75% of them do collect something.
Really,
We can ask them.
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, I think people do collect. I see this at flea markets. I see this at my shows where people do buy. This material sold at my salon show is usable. It's mostly furniture, art, decorative accessories. That is at the higher end. But at flea markets, people go and they buy keys, skeleton keys, they collect. Whatever touches them that they can afford, they will collect.
Another thing I started to collect, I live part-time in Michigan.
Right.
So we have a county fair, and all kinds of people come to sell at that fair. And I collect I can't call them collect, I have a few of the old signs that advertised Coca-Cola and
Sure.
different kinds of things.
Moxie is a big one.
And I thought, why do I want this? I mean,
Nostalgia. It brings back the
yes.
memories of growing up.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It documented a time that we don't have anymore in the culture.
You don't see the tin signs all over the highways anymore.
How has the culture changed over the course of your life? What have you noticed?
First of all, there was nothing electronic when I was growing up. The first thing I remember from now was a Philco television set with a screen this big, in a cabinet that wide that my father bought. It must have been 10 inches. And he invited all the friends in the building, the apartment building in Brooklyn, to come down and watch the Jersey Joe Walcott Joe Louis fight, which was the first one televised on a little black and white that did a lot of flickering. Since then, they now have 80-inch wide plasma and LED televisions that are unbelievable. It's like a movie theater. I mean, I have a funny story, which when I get up in the morning, I get to my computer and I read the New York Times. I don't read it in the newspaper anymore because the type has gotten too small for me. And on a computer, I can blow it up. So I have a Macintosh Air. I open up the thing, I read the Times. I go to the obituary page. And if my name isn't there, I get out of bed and I take a shower, which is what I do.
I thank you, Sandy. That's really good. I'm just going to say a couple of words now. So it was wonderful having Sandy here, and we learned quite a bit. And I think one of the most important things is to see yourself as a servant, to see yourself as a person of service. He talked about it in terms of his booths at his fairs. His job is to make people happy and content with it. But truly, I think that he does that in a lot of ways. You heard him talking about the newsboy at the corner and that we all are sort of influencing each other. Also, he holds himself to quite a high standards. He up there and he wants to stay there in terms of his shows, that he earned it, so to speak. This is something you can do, to go out and earn it by hard work and accepting risk. That's another thing. And also knowing when it's better that another person take over, like the fair that went to this ultimate young man who went to Paris, went to France. And so I'd say in your life, please consider how you treat people, treat them well, hold yourself to a high standards, learn what you have to do because it's always changing. And remember that the big thing in life is your relationships, not only with the people you work with, but your family. And even though they may not have come from the best loving family, you can pass on love and decency and care and attention and inspiration. He uses his restlessness to inspire him and to make him think about the next show, one of which he mentioned. So look around your life and see what you could do that's new, that might be risky, but might be interesting to do and satisfy. So thank you very much for tuning in. And remember, please go out and do something kind for someone you know and someone you don't know, and do it again tomorrow, the next day, and heretofore. And we will see you next time. Again, appreciate your tuning in. Thank you, dear Sandy.
Thank you very much for having me here.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadone.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadone.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Doan.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.